to Australia and Oceania, Part 2. So in our last lesson, we talked about Spain and we talked about the Dutch and how they decided to try to find that south land with all the riches. The Spanish were unable to do it, the Dutch were unable to do it. So next in line came the French. The French sent out a man whose name was Louis Antoine de Bougainville. He set sail from India on his way, certain that he could find this new south land. He sailed and sailed until he found a set of islands that had already been discovered at one time, but he found them again, the Falkland Islands. Everything was going well. He was creating a French settlement, built a fort, when all of a sudden the British got up in arms because the British had found the Falkland Islands before the French. A long-term fight ensued with the Brits and the French. So to get back at the British, the French took their deed for their settlement and gave it to the Spanish. And so now the French in the Falklands were without a settlement. So Bougainville hired two men, a naturalist named Philbert Commissionaire and an astronomer whose name was Antoine Véron. And they put together a ship, a crew, and headed south once again. They didn't find Australia, but they did find Tahiti. A great find for the French. People actually likened Tahiti to the Garden of Eden, the perfect place where anyone would want to live. But it wasn't long till that settlement couldn't last at either, whether it be money or the natives, resupply being hard. Setting up in these islands was very difficult. One interesting thing that happened with the French, though, was there was a young cabin boy that they found whose name was, they thought, Jean Beret. So it turns out that not only did the French take along the first astronomer and the first naturalist, but they also had the first woman to circumnavigate the world on a trip with Bougainville. So we have the Spanish, the Dutch, and now the French, all trying desperately to find the Southland. So the only real powerhouse in Europe that hasn't weighed in yet is England. So what did England do? England found a young man by the name of James Cook. James Cook is known as probably the best sailor and explorer in all the world. He knew that he could find this place. He sailed and sailed and sailed. Never hit Australia. He did, however, sail completely around Antarctica. When he didn't hit land, he went back to England and said, "That great Southland you're looking for, it doesn't even exist." On one of his future travels, however, he did find a really great set of islands out in the Pacific that we know today as Hawaii. Another neat thing about Mr. Cook was he treated the natives kindly and fairly, and so they liked him and his people liked the natives, and they worked well together. He was actually the first explorer to that part of the world who treated the Maoris. Remember the Maoris? Those fierce men from a chapter ago? He treated them so kindly that they were even nice to him. Everything went well with Cook until his final trip to Hawaii. And he had a very unique plan for punishing the natives when they did the right thing to do, if they were stealing or lying or cheating. My challenge to you today is to read pages 267 in your textbook. Be able to talk about Cook's plan. Tell me whether it worked or not. And see if you can come up with a better idea than what Mr. Cook had. Now, we still haven't found Australia, but stay tuned because we know there is an outback. So something is coming around the corner.